Go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Downtown Business Improvement District on Monday, September 29, 2025. It is 5:02. We're here at City Hall in conference room number 1. Mr. Julie, can you help me with the roll call, please?
Justin Heather,
Here.
Lawrence Friedman,
Here.
Grayson Holloway, sorry. Jack Perthards, it's not present. Joel Aronofsky, I'm present. Dan Davila, it's not present. Jasveer Malik, not present. Ita Porras.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to excuse those who are not present.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, item 3 is citizen comments. We have no citizens here, other than board members and city staff, so we'll hold that open here till the end of the meeting. Item 4, approval of minutes of our prior meeting held on July 29th, 2025. You have those minutes with you, what you've had a chance to review. I'll entertain a motion to move or amend, or to approve or amend.
I move that we approve minutes of July the 29th.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
Or Jack.
Hearing none.
For the record, Jack
Passes.
Perthards entered.
Thanks, sir. No problem. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you.
Next up, item 5, discussion items. A, discussion regarding nonprofit formation status and all other matters incident thereto. This is sort of a rolling agenda item. I spoke to our lawyer, I want to say maybe 2.5 weeks ago, and the 501c3 status, everything's been, as I've reported before, everything's been filed and everything. It's pending with the IRS for approval of 501c3 status. The review date has moved back from mid-November to early December. So I'm still hopeful that we'll get word this year. As I understand it, we can start fundraising, but I would like to get that buttoned up, and so I'll keep on top of that and make sure I report accordingly. Item 5B, discussion regarding the status of vacant building ordinance, including city council action taken on September 2nd, 2025, to rescind the current VBO and initiate development of a new VBO and simultaneous creation and approval of corresponding incentive policies to support revitalization efforts with public input from the Downtown Business Improvement District, that's us, the BID, the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone number 1, TERS number 1, the Economic Development Advisory Committee, EDAC, and all other relevant stakeholders and all other matters incident there too. For those of you who don't know, the City Council considered on September 2nd a motion to rescind the current VBO and to readopt a vacant building ordinance, but simultaneously with incentives to support that vacant building ordinance and some of what it does. Several of us spoke, I think Julie and myself, I believe Larry, Jack, you were there maybe?
Yeah.
Not as last week.
And so this was like the 3rd or 4th time to come up before City Council this year. I think most of us have been there at least once. The directive again was, we want a VBO in the city, but we also want to have some supported incentives because it will be expensive for property owners to update their properties, many of which have decades of deferred maintenance. But then B, at least in my mind, more importantly, is not necessarily improving the quality of the supply if there's no demand for it. And so working towards incentives and methods that will incentivize demand for downtown as part of sort of an overall strategy. So I and several others have been working on a draft vacant building ordinance, updating the current one. Shared that with some groups, sort of our intent is not only the TERS, the BID, and EDAC, but also I've communicated with the LEDC and the Laredo Chamber, who also want to be involved in the development of the policies. Go ahead, Jack.
Can I suggest that we also include Laredo Main Street?
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually reached out to them on my own and
Okay.
asked them to put together a subcommittee to
Okay.
join.
Excellent.
Thanks.
And if I can provide some, not just historical background to this, but to the conversations I had with council members before and then after they finally decided to rescind. So the vacant building ordinance, I wouldn't say is something that the business improvement district is championing, but what we're really trying to do is all of council wants a vacant building ordinance. So what we're trying to make sure as an organization is that if a vacant building ordinance were to exist, that it is fair. And if we don't, work with the city, what we'll end up with is similarly to what we had when the city went on its own to create the vacant building ordinance, a really bad policy. So it's really important that it's clear that we're not taking the direct position that we want one. We want our position is we want, if one were to exist, that it's fair. So I've spoken to council members after the vote. The only reason they decided to rescind it was with the full faith that the Business Improvement District, the TERS, all the other organizations would work on creating a fair one. And if we don't bring about one, they're gonna just put it back on the books as they see fit, which I don't think would help the downtown. So that's just something to keep in mind.
So with the, say, a revised version of a VBO, would it be applied citywide, or is it just here in the downtown
No,
area?
it's only downtown.
It's only for, yeah.
I think it would be great to have it all for all of Laredo. Why just pick from downtown? Yeah, but
That's the position of city
Yeah.
council, is just for the downtown.
So right now it's just for downtown, but it's a very good point to raise as part of these ongoing discussions. If you look at El Paso's vacant building ordinance, it started as downtown and it grew to basically the entire city. I mean, I think there might be a few pockets that are exempt from it.
How long did it take?
A few
Before
years. They did a pilot for like 2 years of implementation, and then they started adding starting after about 2 years. With San Antonio, they did the exact same thing, but they did it quicker, I think. But it instead of expanding to the entire city, they literally were like, okay, we're gonna do this pilot downtown with this other area. And then it was any vacant buildings within, I don't know, it was 2,500 feet of a school or, city building or something like that. And so then okay, well, there's other neighborhoods. So they really have expanded it to now it's, I don't know, hundreds of properties are captured within the vacant building ordinance, where it started as just downtown, it really grew. So that's one thing that, a lot of the discussions with city council have been on downtown and revitalizing downtown. But, I think everyone needs to be aware that if it's effective, then it will be used in other districts to, ameliorate blight and whatnot, or at least attempt to. So I think, downtown will be the guinea pig, and I think that's why we want to get it as right as we can. Why we've had some discussions with city staff in late June. I received an email from Mr. Nebb, probably midday today, something like that, with some comments on the vacant building ordinance draft that I had distributed. And I believe I'm planning on meeting with Amber Holmes, one of the city attorneys, in the next couple of days. She reached out on Friday and wanted to talk about some of the incentives policies and whether those would work or not, and how we might be able to get some of those to come about. So I'd like to, in October begin, and we'll, get to formation of a subcommittee, but I'd like to start scheduling those meetings sort of in mid-October so that we can get some decisions, because I would like support from the bid and from all these organizations to formally kind of come up with, and there may be some alternative language, you can't please all the people all the time, but get some form of generalized support, at least, if not language support, for something that we can take back to city council November, December timeframe. There was some concern, I believe, on city council's part about, if we table this, does it ever come back, or how long does it take to come back? And one of the things that I want to do is I want to drive it strike while the iron's hot, get people involved, get it moving, show the council that we're all, very much vested in improving downtown and, you know, if they want to have a VBO with incentives, here's a policy, and we've got, you know, support for 98% of it, and, you know, a few people are concerned about, you know, fees. Do I care whether it's 300 or 400? You know, like, you know, I'll give here or there, but, you know, at least conceptually that folks have real support for an incentive, and then we can always work on some of the language on the back end, but at least get the organizations moving forward and get something back to city council sooner rather
Do
than
you
later.
know how the VBO is working in Eagle Pass?
No, I'm not familiar with Eagle Pass's policy.
Okay.
But if I can just add to what Justin, Mr. Heather was saying, is that the silver lining in all this is initially it was only a vacant building ordinance, and thankfully to a lot of the board members here contacting council members and going to the council meetings, this not only turned into a opportunity to make the vacant building ordinance fair, but council members voted to tag on an incentive policy to the passing of the new vacant building ordinance. And why that's really important is what we didn't have when they developed the vacant building ordinance here was something unusual. Usually you kind of have a carrot or stick type of policy where if you have a vacant building ordinance, there's also an incentive policy tied to it saying, you know, okay, well, here's the stick. Since you're not investing, you know, you're going to get hit with this, but here's the opportunity. We're extending the carrot saying, look, we understand that there's these penalties, but here is the incentive policy to give you the opportunity to invest. And if you're not choosing to do that, well, then you have the vacant building ordinance, which is the stick. Now we're actually developing a full policy that includes the carrot and stick, where before we just had the stick, which made no sense as a policy alone. So the good thing is council members voted, I want to say unanimously, to when this comes back, that it's brought back with an incentive policy with it. So that's the silver lining in all this.
And what kind of incentive will that be?
That's what we're trying to figure out. What does that incentive need to be to
Like rent it out or lease it to? Or,
well
Well, some of the things that we've talked about is, so the current vacant building ordinance is basically a registration with some inspections. There's no necessary quality of care, standard of care is how the San Antonio vacant building ordinance. And that has sort of 17 different things, like if you've got chip on that pane over there and it's facing externally, you've got to fix that or that's a violation. You know, right now it's just a registration, but you do have to bring your buildings up to code, especially if you're going to lease them out. And so one of the things that the vacant building ordinance had was some exceptions if you were leasing, if you had your property leased or listed for lease or sale. And we've included in this revised draft an exception if you are working with the city, either as, you know, getting building permits or talking about improving whatnot, so that folks that are actually investing in the property aren't then also penalized or required to pay a fee for registration. On top of that, you know, there are some incentives that, you know, you can do some tax abatements. There's the current NEZ program that's already in effect that you can go through the city and leverage that, which, you know, sort of hits the increment. Now, that may help the building owner, it hurts the TERS. So, you know, it's a sort of give and take. I have sort of thrown out some ideas. One of them is we have the Itch Street incentive that was adopted by the city council 4 or 5 years ago, maybe at this point.
9 years ago now.
9 years?
Yeah.
Time
2016.
flies. And, you know, it was meant to incentivize development of bars and restaurants on Itch Street. The problem was how it was structured. It really only incentivized bars because restaurants are so expensive. So what I have begun working on with a few others is sort of a culinary district incentive where it's geared away from bars, because we have, I think, plenty of bars, but towards restaurants. You know, any you know, property that 51% of the revenue is from food, you know, non-liquor sales can take advantage of this. We'll see where that goes, but the idea of, you know, we've got all these nice restaurants and we have a lot of culinary skills in the city, but we don't have those restaurants downtown. We have a captive audience during the day, you know, at least. And, you know, maybe if we can get a housing incentive or somehow, you know, encourage, and I know the city through the community development is working on some developing and rehabbing so that we have some market rate apartments, not just affordable housing. And so that will help drive maybe some evening crowd downtown. And the idea would be that we incentivize through some way, shape, or form for tax abatements or rebates of sales taxes. And you know, how I kind of structured it was on this sort of sliding scale so that you get rewarded if you stay in business. You know, it avoids, you know, $500,000 being thrown at a business that closes after year one. You know, and so the incentives, you know, they accrue over time, and you know, especially if you get a sales tax rebate, that those, if you're successful, those sales tax will grow, your rebate should grow. So you know, trying to get some folks to stay there. Some of it directed at infill using the current standards or guidelines for the 380 agreements in Laredo has an infill provision for downtown. So using that maybe in conjunction with El Paso's infill incentive that allows, that provides incentives for infill in downtown. And then obviously I've kind of thrown it out to some other people because many people worked on this long before I did, was a housing incentive that geared towards developers that are going to put in apartments or residences, you know, multifamily generally, that will help encourage, you know, those with disposable income to live downtown, sort of a live, work, play sort of model, because there are so many thousands of, you know, federal, state, county, city folks that work down here, but then, you know, if you look at the heat map, 5 o'clock, they're all leaving. So if we can capture some of that, people aren't moving, you know, aren't traveling as much, and they're here so that the businesses don't have to somehow make their nut over lunch, that there is an opportunity to say Monday through Thursday at least, have some, you know, evening crowd. And then as the community or the downtown area is activated with, you know, Center for the Arts and Cliff Killam and a few others have hosted an event last week, and there's another event coming up. So there's a lot more activity, at least in my opinion, downtown, that on the weekends and the evenings that will continue to sort of, you know, push folks downtown. The city set aside, I want to say $17.3 million in the capital improvement, the recently approved capital improvement plan for purposes of rehabbing the Plaza Theater. It's looking at rehabbing, putting some money into the casitas around Center for the Arts. So I think that all of that, you know, sort of taken together, you know, it takes a village or whatever, that, you know, people are starting to row in that direction, that these incentives will help drive some of the demand as well as all the other activity that's down here. I mean, some people didn't know about that. I know that Food Town is being put on in like October 23rd, 26th, something like that in downtown. So a lot of interest in that area, and had some good conversations with folks who are interested. Obviously we'll involve the city, the county, Laredo College, and the business community, what all we can do. So those are some of the ideas that have been thrown out. I'm hoping again to have those meetings coming up in the coming weeks so that we can, in November at least, you know, formally approve a policy, or maybe late October, formally approve some recommendations for the overall policy.
I think that's great. I was wondering with the properties that the city owns here in Laredo and also the county, if you look at their properties, and all this came up when I think we were probably the first person that got that notice on our door on one of the buildings that is being occupied, but the city, I guess Mr. Rodriguez or whatever his name was, that slapped this on, didn't know any better. But we never got to talk to him anyway. But I wonder, is the city, are they going to be exempt, or is the county going to be exempt? I noticed that they did afterwards, about a week and a half later, they slapped a notice on the county's properties, but none of the city's properties that are empty. I wonder what's going to happen there. Are they going to be exempt from all this?
Currently they were. I'm not sure how this, with the revision of the new ordinance, if they're actually gonna be
Yeah.
exempt.
I was just wondering because, as you know, I was a little bit perturbed about that little sign, but none of your all's properties had a little sticker on them either. So I'm sure that
Well, where's some of these buildings that are vacant?
the what?
Can you give me an example, like one of these buildings, like,
Well, I'll give you one example, the northwest corner of San Agustin and San Agustin and Hidalgo, or let's go down to Santa Ursula and let's say Grant. We have several properties there. Or
The city owns a lot of properties.
Yeah.
Downtown.
Well, they also knocked down a building. They knocked down a building. But,
but how did they end up with it?
how did they end up with them? The what?
They purchased them.
Yeah. There was a building, there's like a building, you know, if we knock down a building in our downtown area, you need to have what's at least a phase one. Environmentally, you gotta make sure that there's no asbestos in the building. City just knocked down the building. They knocked down one of their properties off of Grant Street. I know because they sold it to them. And I was wondering, whatever happened? It was a carriage house and it's gone. They knocked it down. But I was just wondering, like the county and what have you, they should, I would love to talk to Tano about this also, because you get them all involved with this. The city owns on San Bernardo, which would be the northeast corner of Iturbide and San Bernardo. They own all that property going all the way to Lincoln Street, and those are all empty and what have you. That's where we have all our homeless people out there. That's their.
What are they building like west of the Bethany House right now? Is that like the expansion of the Bethany House?
Yes, beautiful expansion. I can't wait. You know, these are my customers, you know.
Well, I think that will come to a head too
Mm-hmm.
as we go through this discussion, because I don't have the certified tax rolls that I shared previously, but if you go back to, I believe, 22 versus this year's 25 report, it shows that the exempt properties, i.e. those owned by 501c3s or the government, has grown from like 110 to 160 something in the area of the bid. So that's basically a 50% jump in the number of properties that are exempt from the assessment.
Right.
Which also reflects a lot of the acquisitions by the city and the county.
Right.
And, you know, if either the city and the county will need to start to get those things up to snuff, or they will need to start sort of transacting and selling those off if they're not going to activate it, I think, will be a part of the discussion. I would not guarantee it, because I can't guarantee anything, but I would think that would definitely be a part of the discussion, because there are so many more properties now being held outside the business improvement district.
Right.
Within its boundaries.
And that's another question, is that, you know, we don't have a defined boundary either, as far as
For the vacant building ordinance?
yes, sir.
Yeah, the original ordinance that was passed from, at least, I think you looked to, I think Mr. Heather looked at online too, when the city passed it, it did not actually, it said C Exhibit A or C Exhibit B for map, and it wasn't included,
There's nothing there.
which was more of a, at the end of the day, it not being there doesn't exactly automatically suddenly say that it was an unenforceable situation where
Right.
the city can't really enforce, but it was very confusing. It was going to lead to a lot of legal issues.
Tons
So
of
I
legal
think
issues.
moving forward, we probably need to also define that.
Right, and I believe in the draft I distributed, I put the bid boundaries. Some people have asked if it should be in the central business district or the bid boundaries. You know, I don't necessarily. I would say, I would argue that it'd be the bid improvement, the business improvement district boundaries make the most sense because that's an area that the city had already targeted for improvement by creating a map when they adopted this ordinance. So that's why I put it that way, and that's what I would argue makes the most sense, is to be consistent in the boundaries. If this is the area that the city has chosen to improve, then let's, of course, people may get upset because they're not in the central business district, but they're in the bid, and they're like, wait a minute, I wasn't, this didn't apply to me or shouldn't apply to me. But, the idea of trying to, be mindful of, if we're gonna target our improvements to keep them consistent, But if someone said, no, it should only be the central business district, I'm not going to sleep over it, I'm more concerned about making sure that the ordinances, both the vacant building and the incentives policy, are positive things than I am necessarily with the boundaries or even the fee schedule.
I think with the whole momentum here, I think everything is really positive. That's very, very positive. I know you weren't there this last week at this function at Center of the Arts. It was fabulous. It's really, really nice. Very good. Actually, you're seeing all the people. You're seeing more and more, like the cultural district, off of Saragossa Street. And every week it's packed, and they have something going on. So eventually, it's going to be nice. Be very nice.
Yeah, I think the momentum's there, and you get struck while the iron's hot.
Everybody has to work together.
And that's one thing that I think is positive when these issues come up. Yes, it's, and I think I sort of hinted at this last time we were at city council. It's not always positive in a sense, like there are people who disagree, but to get all those people in the room together instead of everyone operating in silos, to me, is progress. Even if they come out like, oh, can you believe Justin said that? And Julia, the fact that we were all talking is a positive.
Right.
And you're breaking down those silos, and that's not just for downtown, but for Laredo more generally. So,
Right.
At least I take some positive just from the fact that everyone's interested, and I'm like, hey, I'll do it. And let me jump in. Let me do a subcommittee. I think the subcommittee will be on the TERS agenda for this Friday. Subcommittee's on tonight's agenda. EDAC's already approved. And I've got it sounds like there's been outreach to Laredo Main Street, and I know both the LEDC and the Chamber have expressed interest. With the Chamber, we talked about it on the government committee, subcommittee, and then, ultimately going to the bigger board. I'm not sure exactly where LEDC, I need to follow up with Nacho and David, but, I think, having everyone talking and exchanging ideas is a positive.
I'll follow up with Nidia, which is the director of Main Street. She did say she was going to work on putting an agenda item to create the subcommittee, so I'll follow up.
Great. And I know I've spoken with Kara Alexander, so I'm sure she'll be interested in it. I think I actually know her call. I've been on the road, so like Julian, sometimes other people calls. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, we'll move on to item 6, action items. A, discussion with possible action to authorize utility tax service, should be LLC, to immediately begin the process for imposition of the collection of CLMD assessments, including resolution number 2025R-0002, and all other matters incident there too. Michael Arbaum will not be able to join us tonight. As I mentioned to a few of you, his daughter was sick and passed it around to the household, so he was unable to make it this evening. But essentially, this item is, as you'll recall, last fall and winter, November, December, we authorized the imposition of a 20-cent per $100 appraised value assessment to fund the plan that we also approved at that time. And March of this year, we ratified that to make it effective with 2025. And this is a matter to authorize utility tax service, with whom we already had a contract, and we entered into a contract with after approving it internally here by the board, for them to authorize them to begin issuing those assessments and issuing the bills and collecting the assessments for perform the plan. I've shared a resolution which captures all of this with everybody, and if folks, if we move forward, I just ask Hilda to sign that as secretary. I'll sign it as chair, and then I'll make sure we get that over to Michael, and when he's feeling better, then we can begin that process of collecting the assessments.
Motion to approve resolution number 2025R-0002.
Second.
So a motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all. Action item 6B, discussion with possible action on the formation of a subcommittee to collaborate with TERS number 1 EDAC, the LADC, the Laredo Chamber, and other stakeholders to develop a new VBO and simultaneous creation and approval of corresponding incentive policies to support downtown revitalization efforts and all other matters there incident there too. I know we've already talked about this, but I would like to formally have a subcommittee, which would be 3, I believe.
Yeah, as long as we don't hit a quorum.
Yeah, so as long as we have only 3, then, but I would like to have a formal subcommittee of whomever's interested to get involved with and support our efforts and redevelop it. Again, I've thrown out some ideas, I've thrown out some drafts, but I would like others, especially those that are interested, to feel free to volunteer, join the subcommittee, but I'd like to at least form the subcommittee, and then whoever wants to volunteer can volunteer.
Do we have to name them now, or can we just vote on the subcommittee?
We can vote on the subcommittee, and as long as it's formed, and then whoever wants to join it can join it. And, if there's an alternate, we'll have an alternate. I don't
Okay.
think we formally have to name. Were you at EDAC? Did they form the subcommittee and name, or?
They formed the subcommittee and named, yes.
Okay.
So you want the names now, or do we just form the subcommittee? We just form it?
The subcommittee can be more than 3 people, but I think we just all need to.
Well, because then you get into your quorum.
As long as you're not having communications beyond
Right.
on
Yeah.
the topic
Oh.
to decide something. So let's say we formed a subcommittee and 5 people joined, but when it came to make a decision on whether we were going to support or oppose a particular draft or position, then we would have to have a notice of motion and all of that, and have a public hearing if more than 3 people voted on that. And so that's why we would typically keep the subcommittee to 3. At the same time, you could have 3 voting members with 2 other people that wanted to participate, and then those 3 voting members, the 2 couldn't be there during a formal vote and discussion.
Okay.
So my recommendation is so I don't mind nominating myself to be a part of the subcommittee, but I do think we should at least have 3 plus an alternate, just in case someone can't make one of these meetings. We have someone else that can attend.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to form a subcommittee of 3 voting members with 1 alternate.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Then I can make a motion to name members to the subcommittee. If folks want to volunteer, I'm happy to do it because I've been involved with it. But if others want to do it, because I'm also on some of the other organizations, I can be just as involved, and I don't care whether I'm voting or not. My plan is to do the work regardless. So
Same here. I am not part of the EDAC subcommittee, so there's no conflict there. So
I can volunteer.
okay. You may want to be an alternate.
I don't mind being an alternate.
You're
Who's more excited?
You're part of the committee.
Yeah.
You're not going to be an alternate.
It's 3 plus 1. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
We need an alternate. One of us to be an alternate.
I'll be an alternate.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll make a motion for the 3 of you to be the subcommittee, and I'll be the alternate that sits there and pulls the strings.
Okay.
The only
Right.
just,
Yeah.
but when we have the official meetings, we all need to communicate to make sure but
Yeah,
not
and,
more
and so
than-
when
yeah.
you're having communications, typically what I do is I put BCCs so that people can't respond to one another and have a walking forum.
Okay.
But, you know, I'm happy to serve as an alternate and do drafting. I did this for the state of Illinois, drafted a lot of legislation, so I would say I geek out on it, but I enjoy it. Go ahead.
For the record, the 3 members will be Mr. Lawrence Friedman, Mr. Rednowski, Mr. Holloway, and alternate chairman Heather.
So motion to create motion for the subcommittee members to be Lawrence Friedman, Julian Rodnowski, Grayson Holloway, and Justin Heather as the alternative.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next up is an item that we brought up in July that we had sort of tabled. And it was discussion with possible action on the formation of a subcommittee to address logistics for the provision of services by the CLMMD. Even if we don't name anyone, I would like to go ahead and form that subcommittee to allow folks to take some time. The reasoning behind that is until there are funds, you can't hire an executive director. Once you start collecting funds, though, those of us who will be paying that will want to see services rendered. So at least at the outset, we will need to make sure that there is some plan in place to provide services once assessments have begun being collected.
When are collections supposed to commence? Did he?
I don't remember specifically what he said.
Technically, it's for
Paperwork?
next year, right?
It's for this year because it's
Well,
effective
yes.
in 2025.
Yes.
So,
So people don't start typically paying till towards the end of the year, right?
well, yeah, they would pay. You know, so from what I understand was once we approve the issuance of the assessments, we can get that out in about 5 days, and then folks will have about 30 days to pay, with some relief for the first time it's being collected. So it
Yep.
may, but monies could very well be coming in late October, or more likely November. And, so those monies will probably be available, at least at some level, before the holidays.
So with that motion to create the subcommittee to address logistics motion to create the subcommittee to address logistics for the provision of services by the CLMMD.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, announcements. I don't really have any, but I think we've covered a lot of what's going on downtown, and look forward to some more in the future. So I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second. We are now adjourned.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you.